I guess I was living in chronic pain for sure, and but kind of because it just built up over about 10 years. I think I just kind of started getting used to it. Just kind of maybe disassociating the sensation of pain with negative emotions to it. It was more kind of like I'd get out of the car after a day climbing, driving home from the crag, and I just couldn't, like, it took me like 10 minutes to unbend my legs. Once I got out of the car, I'd just be sitting on the side of the road like, ah. I was about average height for my age until I was probably about 9 or 10, and then in the last couple of years of primary school, I just shot up. So I was about 6 foot, or just under 6 foot, by the time I was 12. So it definitely helped to be kind of tall, but there's quite a lot of growth very quickly, and that probably coincided with the time where I started climbing a lot, and there was no coaches and no one to tell me to, warm up or not just lob off, the top of the climbing walls and land on these thin mats that they had. So there was a lot of that, but I was kind of like a gangly teenager, hadn't put on a whole lot of muscle. When I had just turned 15, there was the climbing national championships were at our gym, and I was kind of like, in town, I'll give it a go. I was kind of hoping to do well in my age group category, and then to win the men's open at 15 was just totally not at all what I was expecting, and changed my kind of viewpoint about myself as a climber probably for a little while as well. I never really thought about the fact that my hip mobility was, anything apart from being just a bit inflexible. There was a physio who was a regular climber at the gym, and kind of looked at me climbing, and he's like, just lie down for a second, and he got me to put my knee up and just did some basic range of motion stuff, and he's like, you need to go see a surgeon. He just straight away knew that something was super wrong. And that would have been when I was probably mid-20s by then. 25, 26. He's basically just realized that my hips were starting to fuse. Which is, not ideal. And I thought I was just, not flexible, but I was kind of like adapting in other ways. Like, for instance, I could kind of do some of the same movements, but maybe having quite good trunk rotation. So, range of motion as it is now, I can move my knee up to about here. That's my best single direction. When it's here, I basically can't move it left or right at all. And that's my good leg. This one's, can't quite get at the same height, and that's pretty much locked. In terms of hip abduction, I can go about that far out. Yeah. First surgeon I talked to, his attitude was basically, you're done. You're with climbing, you need to quit your job, go back to university, be sedentary. You basically, climbing's not going to be a thing for you anymore, which was a real blow. So I, decided to just ignore him and get a second opinion. And the next surgeon I talked to was a guy called James Byrne, amazing genius of a surgeon who basically just said, they're bugging for sure, but keep on doing what you do, and we'll just whip them out when the pain gets too much, and you'll be able to climb afterwards, it'll be fine. And I was just like, I like you. Yeah. He was the guy who knew what kind of, especially younger active people would potentially do to the hips. And he was interested in designing hips that wouldn't just kind of fail after 10 or 15 years, or just be able to, get someone very, late in their life just to be able to have a measure of comfort, but someone who was going to go and like thrash them. And yeah, I think he was just, kind of seen who I was and knew what I was probably going to try and do to them. And he was just like, challenge accepted.
It's really an engineering problem that Sefton had. So the sockets were too deep and the range of motion gets reduced, usually so you can only have flexion extension going forwards and backwards, and they have no ability to go outwards or rotate very easily.
I was definitely really heavily skewed towards side-on movement because I couldn't really climb face-on. I couldn't open my hips up very well, so I would always find a kind of twisty way, which meant that I tended to be, like, twisty climbing tends to be most powerful on steeper or overhanging terrain. So I just found myself naturally more drawn towards steeper stuff, and probably just finding a way to avoid the style of climbing that I was really limited at. Eventually it got to the stage where I just realized that the rest of my body was adapting in really messed up ways. I was having this kind of, my whole back was getting really swayed. Yeah, and it was actually getting to the stage where if I just kept on trying to hold on for too long, it would end up just messing up the rest of me too much. And at that point, went back for another referral, and they were like, yeah, it's time for sure.
Yeah, I've got no flexibility at all. Like if I that's as high as that can go, and then I can't move my knee left or right at all. So like that joint, your hip is.
Wait, are you getting a metal?
No, they don't use metal anymore. They use ceramic now. But it's so what they I don't know, fell off too many rocks. Didn't warm up enough when I was your guys' age.
His hips were these protrusio hips, and it can be idiopathic. Sometimes it's called an ottopelvis, and you see it more overseas where patients might have rickets or bone softening or inflammatory arthritis such as rheumatoid arthritis. But there are many causes which can result in a protrusio hip. So when the hip replacement was done, the bottom of the socket was filled with new bone and the centre of the cup was moved out, and the femur was moved away from the pelvis to increase the range of motion before the femur would hit the edge of the pelvis, and that was his problem beforehand. His hips got slightly wider and he got taller, probably about 15 millimetres, yeah.
The biggest thing that you notice, like off the bat, is the absence of being in pain all the time. Like that's the one thing that I think everyone who has hip replacements, once the initial repair stage goes away, you're just like, whoa. And then things like returning to activity, increased range of motion, all that's kind of a process that takes years. I assume that bouldering, so climbing without ropes and harnesses above pads, I assume that would be out. It'd just be too much load, too much impact. But I was thinking if I could even just top rope, that would be cool. And yeah, it turns out that I've been able to boulder, do rope climbing, multi-pitch, alpine rock, mountaineering, like everything, but like even more than before. Like I didn't expect that I would actually be able to climb harder.
There's a few things you should know about Sefton. Not only is he a climbing wall and hold entrepreneur, businessman, he has been the New Zealand lead open male champion not less than 3 times. He won it in his teens, won it in his 20s, and won it in his 30s.
Yeah, going to the national lead champs in 2016. Again, it was kind of going back to that low expectation that I probably had in the first time I won the national champs, and by that stage it was probably 3-4 years after the the first hip replacement, and I was at a stage where I was actually starting to see improvements just because this whole style of climbing, like face-on climbing, was all of a sudden like opened up to me and I could explore. Like it was like half of the movement in climbing had just been shut off to me for so many years that I was actually able to, you know, widen the bag of tricks that I could use to try and climb things.
You have patients who are disabled, and when you see them at 5 and 6 weeks post-surgery, they're a different personality, and often they don't look tired anymore. They look younger because they're sleeping and they're not in pain and taking medication, and it often opens the doors and their life just changes. And so for us, it's probably one of the nicest specialties of medicine to be in.
The hip replacements have been totally transformative with, not just climbing, but life overall, just being able to go for adventures with my boys, Like I've been able to be way more of an active dad with them.
How are you feeling? You've grown some more skin since Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go give it a wee brush for you? Go, Sebastian. Come on, let's go, man.
I think these people come along and they have expectations and they know what they want to do in their life and they want to get on with things, and they understand it and they're prepared to take the risk, but the risk is pretty small and it's contingency planning. So whatever you do, you have to think of what not that operation is, but 2 operations ahead. So Sefton has a clip in, clip out, so one can always change liners, change heads. We can do lots of things. He's got plenty of adaptation options if he ever needed to. I don't expect he's going to.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think what would be left of me if I couldn't rock climb and couldn't get out into the hills. I think it would have been a very different life if I hadn't been able to, find someone who could make me bionic so I could keep on enjoying that